A week later, does the Penix pick make more or less sense?
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everyone, to another illustrious episode of the Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends today. Download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play. So, guys, if you don't know me, I'm your very humble host, Aaron Freeman, a.k.a. Mr. Drew, a.k.a. Sirius Black, a.k.a. the Jolly Green Giant, a.k.a. the iron that sharpens the iron, a.k.a. Mr. a.k.a. been covering the Falcons for, just too long. You know, it makes me sad inside when I think about how long I've been talking about and writing about and podcasting about this football team, formerly at FalcFans.com, RIP, still going strong on this illustrious podcast. But you know what cheers me up? Knowing that the everydayers are out there. They're counting on me to provide their first listen or first watch of the day. And of course, if you want to become an everydayer and you want to cheer me up, all you got to do is subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. So today we are joined by Damian Parson of the Locked On NFL Draft podcast, as well as the Draft Network. And we'll get his thoughts on the Falcons 2024 draft class. So without further ado, let's jump into that conversation right now. Welcome back, everyone, to another illustrious episode of the Locked On Falcons podcast with another illustrious guest, none other than Damian Parson, the co-host of the Locked On NFL Draft podcast, also one of the gurus over at the Draft Network. And we're going to, of course, pick his brain on the Falcons 2024 draft class. And Damon, we got to jump right into it. You know, what were your thoughts immediately when you saw the Michael Penix pick for the Atlanta Falcons? And now that you've had a little less than a week to kind of let it marinate, what are your thoughts now? Are they any different?
When the pick first came across, I was like, this is a joke. Like, I thought it was like I thought the NFL was like playing a prank. I was like, there's no way. The Falcons took him at 8, especially after just giving Kirk Cousins the deal. Then, of course, you know, taking a couple days to start looking at the contract over overthecap.com, like really looking at how detailed his stuff is. He's the best in the business. And I was like, okay, if they cut Kirk Cousins post June 1 of 2026, they saved like 90 mil, then you got to subtract like 25 mil from it. So either way, they come out with in the green. They saved themselves a lot of money. So I was like, okay, I could see this kind of playing out with like the consensus as well. Penix isn't going to see the field for 3 to 4 years. I don't think that's going to be the case. I truly believe it's going to be a situation where we see it's going to be played by ear. Like, Kirk, you got to go out there and keep him off the field in year 1. Because I think heading into camp a year 2, it becomes a competition. So looking at it now, I understand to an extent of being prepared, right? Because at the same time, it's like, all right, we don't know what Kirk Cousins is going to look like post Achilles. No, it's not like he was Anthony Richardson and, you know, he was a mobile quarterback or anything. But still, the confidence of the mental confidence and the struggle from a mental standpoint to come back from an injury, especially a lower leg injury. Gotta think about it. Getting bodies around your feet, the pocket gets muddy. How is he mentally going to handle that? You know what I mean? Is he going to be a little fidgety in the pocket where guys are around his legs and he's throwing off platform when he doesn't need to be, right? Like, how does it impact the way he approaches the game when pressure's on and different things like that, and the defense is getting back there? So, because his pocket movement is what's going to be really key, is like, how confident is he in that Achilles to be able to plant and drive and move and slide and be able to move around the pocket and evade, rushers. So after because like I said, I was really shocked initially. I was like, wow, especially knowing that, hey, you need an edge, you need another corner. Like, Roma Doomsday was right there. I like the way Kirk Cousins and his camp felt. I feel and felt the same way. You got Kirk, and you want to do whatever you can to make sure, we knock off Tampa Bay. I don't think you have to worry as much about Carolina. They improved their team, but they're not Tampa Bay. Like Tampa Bay is a much better roster, and they have a much more proven quarterback right now. So you want to knock them off, win this division. I forgot about the Saints. It's Derek Carr. I'm sorry.
It's fine. You can forget about the Saints on this.
Yeah,
podcast.
I can't put too much stock in that one right now. But yeah, I feel like you want to win this division, and I understand why Kirk felt the way he did. But then kind of like I said, taking a couple of days, like all right, it's just all about, hey man, this is probably one of the best pure passers in this class. Accuracy, ball placement, rocket of an arm, and then like putting him in this McVay style, Shanahan style offense, I think really gets him and puts Michael Penix in a good spot. So his initial reaction was very, very much shocked. I've kind of come down to kind of I'm in the middle. I understand both sides of the part. I understand why Kirk Cousins will feel in his camp will feel the way they feel, but I also understand why the Falcons would try to invest in that position. Because you were not getting him in the second round, like not with Vegas sitting there at 13. It just was not going to happen, So I think, like I said, initial shock, but now I kind of understand both sides of it.
So you touched upon this a little bit. Can you talk a little bit more about your evaluation of Michael Penix?
Yeah, I had a early second, late first round grade on Penix. Just like I remember, flamethrower, man. This is a guy that throws rockets. He can drive the ball in the middle of the field. He throws a outstanding back shoulder fade to, think about what we saw at Roma Dunze, him having a big body like Drake London, having a big body like Michael Penix. Kyle Pitts, at tight end. You have, I think, Rondale Moore, who you brought over with the Desmond Ridder trade, Darnell Mooney. So the speed for him to be able to stretch the field, if he was to see the field for any significant amount of time in 2024 with these weapons and his ability as a passer, this offense could be kind of electric. I'm not going to lie to you. Like if this was a 1-year deal for Kirk Cousins, I'll be all in on this because I'm like, all right, I know for a fact, like there's a strong chance he probably plays in 2024, maybe late or early 2025. But the main thing, I think one of the biggest knocks I had on him was he doesn't always, he's not always connected, like upper body, lower body in terms of throwing. It's not mirrored. It's not a mirrored image. You want to see him be more synchronized as a passer, making sure that his feet and his hips and everything is aligned with his upper body. Sometimes like the lower body's pointing right, he's throwing left, or he's throwing in the middle of the field. And while, yes, you got enough arm talent to get it there, I think that if he gets everything aligned, or shout out to JT O'Sullivan, aka QB School, love his content. The term he uses is called dovetailing. If he's able to dovetail and be lined up to his target and drive the ball, I think that's when you really like. I think what we've seen from his arm talent is just part of it. I think he has more, but the lower body and the disconjointedness at times decreases how much velocity and power and strength he can muster up. Where when he is aligned, like he can rip it, but he also throws with good touch too, like crossing patterns over sitting defenders. He can layer it, right? He can layer it with a nice feathery touch to his weapons. The accuracy and ball placement is there. And yeah, he didn't run a 4.46 at his pro day. That never happened. That was not a 4.46 in no way, shape, or form. It was more so like a 4.5, 4.6. He's still mobile. Like he's still, even though with the past ACL tears, he can still get out of the pocket and make a few things happen with his legs.
Okay. Well, we talked about Michael Penix. We'll talk about the rest of the Falcons draft class. Yeah, I know. It's like almost like they actually made other picks. Like everybody's just talking about this one pick. But there's 7 other players that the Falcons selected in 2024, including 4 defensive linemen and pass rushers. And we'll get Damian's thoughts on those guys as we continue today's Locked On Falcons. So, guys, in these dark times for the Atlanta Falcons, where you're sitting here listening to all these draft experts tell you the Falcons are the worst run football team in the history of the sport, we don't agree with that. Like the 3rd worst run football team in the history. So I'm joking, guys. Kidding, right? But the point is, you need your friends now more than ever. And you can hang out with your friends with Monopoly Go. Team up with them for time tournaments. where you can work together, build up each other's boards, right? Just like you build up each other over the Michael Penix pick. And the more you win together, the more awesome the prizes you unlock, such as unique stickers that you can trade with your friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces, hilarious emojis. Plus, with Monopoly Go, it feels new and exciting every day with the constantly changing tournaments and challenges, right? There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench, go download it now for free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. So we are here with Damian Parson of the Locked On NFL Draft podcast, as well as the Draft Network. And, since, this is a Locked On family affair, let's plug the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel for free here on YouTube, as well as the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, giving you that can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube and the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So after round one, the Falcons really went heavy on their defensive front, which was much needed. Right, they took Ruke Orhorhoro out of Clemson in round 2, Bralen Trice out of Washington in round 3, Brandon Dorlus out of Oregon in round 4, and then came back at the end of the draft in round 6 with Zion Logue out of Georgia. Is there anybody on that defensive front that the Falcons added that you feel really good about? Maybe there's a guy that you have question marks, or maybe you're just kind of lukewarm on them. What are your thoughts on that haul of 4 defensive linemen?
The first 3 names that you in the second round, Ruke Orhorhoro, Bralen Trice, Brandon Dorlus. I loved all 3 of those guys in terms of what they brought to a defensive line. I think the main thing for me was because with Ruke, 34-inch arms, he played all up and down the Clemson defensive line. He played some 0 tech in passing situations, 1 tech. He played 2I, he played 3, 4, 5, and even kicked out a little bit wide. And the power is the first thing that you notice with him. To really get his hands fitted inside the chest plate of blockers, and he could drive guys back into the quarterback's either hip or right there into the pocket. And he's really good against the run. Being able to stack, peek, and shed because he has the physical tools and frame to do so. He has the strength in the lower body and anchor. I think ideally he's probably more of a 4I to 5 tech, in my opinion. But I think that's where I was a little confused with them trading up for him. When I saw them trade up, I was like, okay, they probably have to be going for an edge right out the gate, because that's a position that Terry Fontenot hasn't had much success with drafting. Arnold Ebiketie has been okay. We saw flashes at times from D'Angelo Malone, which I always knew he was more of a raw prospect coming out of Western Kentucky, twitched up, explosive young man. But just from a pass rush planning process, he was always kind of raw. So just wanting them to get an impact rusher, I think Bralen Trice can be that. A guy who's at 260, 270, plays in a stand-up, two-point stance, can fire off the ball, outstanding motor, very tackles don't get an off day with him. He's not going to, sell you the first move. Oh, you got me. And that's it. No, he's going to throw another counter and throw another counter. He's going to keep working until he gets back there. And that's where it's he's just an energizer bunny off the edge, has a solid spin move as a counter, different, hand techniques, double hand swipes, long arm overs, different things of that nature. But he also knows how to sell it outside rush to threaten the outside shoulder and try to force that tackle to overset so he can work back cross. So I really like that pick in the 3rd round. Dorlus, to me, man, I tweeted out, and it's crazy, I tweeted out before you guys were on the clock, and he came off the board pretty early. That I didn't understand the fall of Brandon Dorlus, a guy that was super versatile, played defensive end, rushed that defensive end, but also a guy that can exchange gaps and work as a slasher, as a attacking style defensive lineman. Also played some 3 tech, athletic, agile, quick, has power to walk guys back into the backfield. And unlike Ruke, I think that's the thing where Ruke has to develop that pass rush repertoire and plan, where I think Brandon Dorlus already has that. So I love all 3 prospects, it was all about the fit for me, where I'm like, okay, I would have rather them go edge in the second round, and still, especially when you get Brandon Dorlus in the fourth, like that would have been an ideal situation. Maybe you get two edges out of this deal where you get Trice in the third, you get another more explosive first step quickness, speed rusher and everything, and then have Brandon Dorlus, and you're like, man, like we're in a good spot because you still have David Onyemata, you have Grady Jarrett coming back healthy, and it looks like he's ready to go. From a few pictures I saw surfacing and circling on social media, that he looks like we say this every year about guys, but he really looks like he's in the best shape of his career, best shape of his life. And so I think, if anything, the fit on how Raheem Morris is going to deploy these guys is going to be interesting. Like that's going to be that training camp storyline that I'm going to be most interested in. Not Michael. People are going to be watching Penix, and I saw some tweets about like was it what's the movie with Jamie Foxx? Every given Sunday,
Yeah.
where he's on the sideline with the older QB with his do-rag on it. I was like, yeah, that's Michael Penix and Kirk Cousins. And I'm not gonna lie, I laughed because I was like, this is pretty spot on. But like that's what people are going to be paying attention to. I want to just see how Raheem Morris uses these guys. Like, where are they going to line up? How does he figure out who's on third downs in key moments and different things like that? But overall, I love all three players. Now it's just all about trusting that coach to put them in the right positions to be successful.
And you talk about that. Raheem had a lot of success with some rookies last year with the Rams, Byron Young, some young players on that side of the ball. Could you see any one of these guys sort of emerging and having that type of production right away? And if anybody you're going to bet on, is it Trice? Is it Dorlus? Is it Orhorhoro that could have that type of impact in year one?
Man, I think it could be. I think it's between Trice and Dorlus, because I still wonder. Like, I think those two guys are kind of seamless fits for me. Like, I know where I can place them and how they're going to be successful. I don't know what we're going to do with Ruke, like, right now. And, it's crazy because people are like, well, DP, he traded up for Ruke. And I'm like, 100%. But I think skill set wise, in terms of being a 3-down player and pass rusher right out the gate, I think that's more Trice and Dorlus. That where I think Dorlus could be his version of Kobie Turner. Whereas that it was that day 3, late day 2, day 3 type of pick, and people don't talk about him because there was other guys selected before him. And then we fast forward and he's got 8, 9, 10 sacks as a rookie. I think Dorlus could be that version for him. And like you said, Byron Young and what he was able to get out of that young man. I trust Raheem. I need to see what is he going to do with Ruke. I'm like, I don't know if he's going to pull Yamada off the field, put Ruke alongside Grady Jarrett. Maybe are you going to flip Dorlus on passing downs and have him flanking at one defensive end spot, and you have Bralen Trice at the other? It's just I'm very, very interested to see what where this goes and how he utilizes all these guys, because I was very confused with the Ruke pick, but Bralen Trice and Brandon Dorlus, I was like, okay, I see an exact role for them right out the gate.
Okay. So we'll talk a little bit more about some of the non-defensive line day 3 picks, if any of those guys stand out. And we had a conversation with DP before the draft about the perfect pick or the perfect draft for the Falcons, and the Falcons seem to kind of ignore some of those needs. And sort of we'll talk about his thoughts on that choice to maybe not address some of those key positions like wide receiver and cornerback early in this draft. And we'll break that down to wrap up today's Locked On Falcons. And everyone, it is playoff time in the NBA and NHL. And of course, baseball season is in full swing, and FanDuel is the place to go if you're trying to bet on every single game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. You can bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all in an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. And some of you guys may have made bank, betting on NFL draft props, but now you can bet on upcoming NFL season props, rookie of the year, right? Win over unders, who's going to make the playoffs, all that is there for you. So what are you waiting for? Head on over to FanDuel.com/lockedon today, and you'll make your first bet an automatic win. Again, that's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. So we've already touched upon Brandon Dorlus, the Falcons' 4th-round pick, but did any of the other day 3 picks for the Falcons sort of stand out to you, or is it just sort of run-of-the-mill depth, special teams type of players for you?
Man, it sucks for it sucks a little bit because you have such a talented running back room right now. But I like Jase McClellan out of Alabama, the 6th-round pick, a young man that's quick-footed. He paired well in 2022 with Jahmyr Gibbs, where he was kind of more of they used him more as the hammer, more the thunder to the lightning. That was Jahmyr Gibbs, short yard situations. But then seeing him and watching him get his bearings in 2023, as kind of the lead back for the most part, processing in zone, quick footed to get in and out of gaps, being able to be a one-cut slasher. I can't remember which game it was. Oh, I think he had a big touchdown run early in the Michigan game, right? He understands how to be patient, allow blocks to set up, press the outside, especially in zone, that outside hip of the final blocker on the line, and understands hey, I either need to bounce, I need to bend, or I need to bang this run. And he knows when to cut it up, when to bounce it out, and when to make a play, man. I think he's a solid receiver out of the backfield. It just sucks that this is a tough, like you have Bijan, you have Tyler Algier, right? And some other backs. I don't know. It could be an uphill climb for him to make the roster, but I do like the skill set a lot. And I'm like, man, if they could, I don't know, maybe call Dallas and like, hey, you want Tyler Algier? Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you wanted to get an extra pick in 2025, seeing that Dallas does not have a really robust running back room right now, you could get some value for a Tyler Algier, in my opinion, and then allow Jase McClellan to kind of be that RB3 that can work his way to RB2 behind the Bijan. I really liked the skill set that he has. It just sucks, like I said, because there's so many talented backs in that room. I think Casey Washington, the receiver out of Illinois, was an interesting pick, and a guy that has some stuff to him, as I like to say, in terms of decent height, weight, and build. He's very competitive. A guy that like just absolutely is. I would say he's a dog at the catch point. I think the speed is okay. Vertical is not great, right? So he's going to probably be more of a, even though he's like 6'3", 220, but probably be more of a contested catch, run at the catch option. You want to get him in the quick game, allow him to fight through and power through tackles and get those yards after the catch for this offense. I thought he was a pretty solid pick, and just add some depth and competitiveness into this wide receiver room, especially JD Bertrand, the 5th-round pick, the linebacker. Interesting, smart, instinctive young man, good leader as well. And unfortunately, the linebacker position hasn't been the greatest for Atlanta. I forget it was a really athletic kid that you guys drafted.
Troy Anderson.
Yes, Troy. I was thinking about Tyson Anderson for some reason, but Troy Anderson, and he hasn't exactly panned out. But I think getting a guy like Bertrand, who works very well downhill, to stopping the run, I think he's probably more of a 2-down type of player, where dealing with Tampa, who's going to run the ball. Now you see the Chuba's there, and now they drafted Jonathan Brooks. Carolina's going to run the football, right? I expect the Saints to get Alvin Kamara and Kendra Miller, trying to get them going, because all of these quarterbacks need complementary run games to help them open up the passing game with the play action. I expect a guy like Bertrand to be able to find a role on 1st and 2nd down to help stop the run. He just won't be as useful or effective on 3rd downs unless he's blitzing, because he's not the greatest. He's a kind of an average athlete in terms of speed and transitional changes and changing direction. But I think overall he's a solid player that'll be able to help on the rundowns.
Okay. Well, DP, we talked earlier this offseason, and we talked about like your perfect draft. And I think it was something along the lines of an edge rusher in round 1. I think Ladd McConkey in round 2, and like Kyrie Jackson, the Oregon corner, in round 3. Obviously, the Falcons did draft a wide receiver later in Casey Washington, as you just discussed. But, I think a lot more people thought they would get someone who could probably be more of an instant impact, offensive player. And they completely ignored the cornerback position altogether. So I'm just curious, do you feel like the Falcons, did a good enough job addressing some of these other areas like quarterback, like D-line, that may not have been considered the priorities going into the draft, to kind of make up for the fact that they may not have addressed some of these other positions that we sort of all circled looking at as key needs.
Yeah, I think what they overall, I think they did a pretty decent job of getting talent, right? Like just actually getting talented football players and guys that can play multiple positions, especially on the defensive line, as the guys we talked about. Getting the quarterback that you hope is the quarterback of the future, right? Rookie quarterback that with 23 will be 24 years old, and it's always crazy that people mention that stuff about Jaden, about Nix, about Penix, and it's like, if you really remember, go back to when Joe Burrow was drafted, he was like 23.8 years old. Like he was about to turn 24 himself, and he only had one true breakout year, and that was that final year at LSU, right? So the age doesn't bother me for Penix as it might for some people. He got the green light, in terms of his injury history and medicals from the combine in Indianapolis just a month and a half or so ago. So I think overall they did a good job getting talent. It's just not getting I wanted them to go edge a little early, man. Late 2 was there. I felt like they could have traded. If you didn't want to take late 2 at 8, that's fine. Trade down, right? Minnesota was staring you right in the face who wanted to move up. You call Minnesota and say, hey, come up to 8, give us 11, give us an extra pick, whether it's, day 2 pick, extra 4th rounder, a second for next year, whatever you need, so that you can come up, we can move down to 11. And then right there, you're in the teens, you absolutely take a late 2 lot 2, right? Jared Verse was still available. Dallas Turner was available. All the corners were available, man. And so that's where I just that's why I have the issues with is like taking Penix. You took a guy where you bypass instant impact for a future cash in. And I get it, but I feel like they just should have went with the instant impact early on. But the players they drafted, especially like Penix is a good player, Ruke is a good player, Brandon is a good player, Bralen, all these guys are good football players. And it's like, if you rearrange the order, maybe get the edge instead of a Ruke and still get Dorlus and Trice and Penix. I might say this is a home run even without the corner, because what helps the secondary is a pass rush, right? Like be able to speed these quarterbacks up, hit them, make them. I want my defensive line to make every quarterback throughout the game feel like Sam Darnold when he was playing the Patriots. I want them all hearing footsteps. I want them seeing ghosts. I want them feeling uncomfortable. And I think that there's some potential to do that, but they just missed the mark a little bit in terms of how they went about it, especially on round 2 or day 2.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, DP, appreciate you coming on, sharing your insight into the Falcons draft class. Let the people know what you and Keith are getting into on Locked On NFL Draft and any other things that you want to plug.
Oh man, finishing out this, tying a bow on the 2024 draft class and everything. Went through grades and kind of best wide receiver fits. We're talking defense and everything that kind of closes out as well. And then getting ready for mini camp and rookie camps and everything to see how some of these guys are performing. And we did a way too early 2025 mock draft over at the Draft Network. So we're gonna break that down the channel with some prospects that you're going to hear a lot about over the next calendar year. So just a lot of fun coming through as we head into the summer, man. So everybody definitely tap in with us.
There you go. Well, guys, me and DP were talking before we started recording, and he basically told me it's like you get 2 weeks off before you got to turn the page to the next year's draft class. So that's basically it. So go, guys, checking them out on Locked On NFL Draft as well as the draftnetwork.com. DP, really appreciate you joining us here. Sure. And I look forward to future conversations towards the 2024 draft class in the coming months. So, guys, that is going to do it for us here on today's Locked On Falcons. Tomorrow we'll be joined by Trevor Sikkema of Pro Football Focus, formerly of the Locked On NFL Draft podcast, to talk about his thoughts on the Falcons draft class, and we'll see, what he thinks. So that is in store for you on that. And guys, I did check. We did get to 10,000 subscribers, so I appreciate you. And if you still haven't subscribed, let's get to 11,000, right? Let's see if we can get to 11,000 before the season starts, especially, given this summer where we'll be cranking out the content As I said, tremendous content coming your way this summer. So make sure you subscribe to the Locked On Falcons podcast. Check out Locked On NFL Draft podcast. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.